Hello, welcome to the Stampscapes Spooky Lab featuring some of the new stamp designs for this Halloween season. All right, so we have a piece of half page of vintage paper. These vintage papers come in usually assorted packs of about, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 different designs, usually 10 sheets of each. Just real cheap, inexpensive text weight paper. And they usually come with a bit of a vignette around the perimeter, giving it that aged, framed off look. I've cut it in half, so if you're going to do this on a vertical, you'll probably want to add a little bit of a tone to match the other 3 sides. If you cut it in quarters, then you have a couple sides to add a little bit of perimeter texturing and value just to frame it off. They all come in a little bit of a different color around on the perimeter, different values. So you match it with usually brown tones or something like that, maybe black. On this one, it's fairly heavy, so I'd use black. All right, now I don't feel like adding in that perimeter tone on mine, so I'm going to use this as my base down here with some different imagery, and that will, in a sense, in effect, add that closed off area that that vignette provides. Okay, that being said, let's get to it. I'm going to do several rocks in this piece, and I'll plant my new haunted trees in here. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating a setting for our figure here, our Ferryman. Now you can configure your rocks however you want. This is going to be kind of a near shoreline type of scenario. Oh, maybe one of the little piers would, look pretty cool in here. I didn't think about that. I'll do it in a future composition. All right, I'm going to create a little bit of an opening right here too. You can put, all rocks down there as a near shore, but sometimes I leave a little bit of space for the viewer to enter the scene through kind of in a visual sense. Okay, I can add some more of these rocks up here. There's also a smaller version that would be perfect for that, but I think I'm going to add in some of my favorite rocks from one of the desert sets. And what this is going to do is it'll create some additional framing around the piece. All right. Remember, in scenic stamping, you don't have to use the entire stamp. You can just use portions of it, and it looks perfectly natural to do so. Okay, now this is going to be water in here, okay? So these rocks are going to be in water. Working on this type of paper, it's pretty fun to do. I didn't have a lot of time here, so I'm doing some other things. I'm getting people's orders out for the new sets, and but I've been itching, ever since I drew these, designed these stamps, to use them. So it's a good way to get in there and to do something very quickly because the background is already established. So it makes for a quick scene to do it like this. Okay, I think I was going to put the tree in here, but trees, but I think I'm going to go with the Ferryman first, just so I can work around the Ferryman rather than put the trees in there and think, oh my god, I didn't leave room for the Ferryman. So because this figure here is fairly large. I have a smaller version of them, which can work around your objects a little bit easier, but just because it's smaller. But let's see. Let me take a look here for visual reference. It's my first time using this stamp. So there they are right there. Okay. I think I'm going to go right about... Go right there. Well, kind of rule of thirds, not quite. Pressing and holding just for a couple more seconds just to make sure that they're nice and dark. Okay, and let's go in with our trees here. These rocks aren't perfect for the base of this. So what I think I'm going to do, meaning this base of the trunk, you know, that's not real super solid black up there. Although, I don't know, I guess the trunk can be on the front of it. The front of these rocks. But what you can also do is you can kind of dab this off a little bit at the base so that it stamps out a little bit lighter at the base as it transitions right into those rocks, okay? Maybe I'll go for kind of a second impression for some added depth. We'll see how that works. Okay. So on this one right here, I'm planting the tree on these rocks, but going in front of the other rocks, which you can do because for the most part, these branches are solid, kind of more silhouette based like that right over there. So it goes right over those rocks. Okay, now I can put this smaller tree right here, but maybe we'll go with the larger one right there. Or we can save that larger one for this near rock right here. I think I'm going to go with this one right there. That looks okay too, though. Maybe I'll use a piece of this one down here. There we go. There's a lot of choices. Or a lot of options, I should say. The way that these trees have been designed purposely, just the way the base transitions. So purposely, I guess it's also theoretically until I do it here, but I don't know. I've been designing long enough to where I know how things are going to work for the most part. But, you know, you never really know, like 100%, I guess. Okay, so let's go with another right down here. we'll kind of put this in from the other side, meaning we used mostly the left-hand side of the tree here, and this one here on the left side of the scene, you'll be using the right side of the tree, and just a portion of it. We'll go about right here. Press and hold a little bit longer, maybe. Yeah, I should have, I don't know, pressed and held a little bit longer on that one. That one looks a little bit light, doesn't it? By the way, I'm using a hybrid ink here from Moon and the Baker. It's opaque, black as black. Okay, so hybrid inks have a little bit of a pigment ink in them. It's like a dye and pigment ink combination. So on a little bit more of an absorbent style of paper, it could potentially give you a result in a little bit of a thicker, darker impression. I like that. Let's do a little bit more. It's getting kind of more craggy and kind of pokey and kind of ominous. The more, sharper elements we have in here. It's like one of those environments that might be cool to look at, but from an aesthetic point of view, it's like, I don't think I want to go there. Most of which is opposite of most of the scenes I do. Most of the scenes I want to invite the viewer in and to enter the scene, to be kind of visually welcoming with a lot of soft, inviting, textures with soft lighting and etc. But on these ones, it's like you just kind of want to look at it and think, oh, that that looks like a cool, kind of scene. I wouldn't necessarily want to visit, or I wouldn't want to be there. You want it to be cool to look at, but yeah. Okay, let's see. I was thinking about adding kind of like a moon in here or something like that. But I also want some background trees, I think. So let's do this. I'm going to do this. This is what I was talking about before, the second impression. So we'll go with one impression like that. I took off a pretty decent amount of ink right here, and then I'll transition it. I'll remove a little bit more down here. And then let's go with, let's go right in here. There's a pretty decent amount of space here. So we can go for that really light impression. Maybe I took off too much ink, but it doesn't really interfere with the foreground or the impressions in front of it, the trees in front of it. Here, I'll try to remove a little bit less. It's okay. I just don't want it too dark. If you go a little bit too light, then so be it. You just don't want to get too dark where you can't really see the forms of these main trees, but you see this, you get that craggy little background at whatever depth essence. And let's go for one more. I guess if you have like a, I don't know, like a gray hybrid, maybe that would be good too. I don't know. I've never had it. So I just use a drier version of black for those background images. Okay, so that is that. We pretty much have the foundation set here. Let's add a little bit more texturing right here. This is my Tiny Rock Small, which is really important stamp for me. It's probably the one that I use the most. Just in terms of, the repetition of image. So I'll use it in most of my scenes to add a lot of continuity between all of the different images, the distance of images. In other words, I have it near and I have it far. Okay. So it's like a common texture, so it's like a common thread that you're putting through all different areas. You could put it in grass, you could put it in snow. In water, I'm adding a pretty decent amount of it like that, so I condense it in areas right next to objects, and it puts them into the scene a little bit more because it's almost acting like shadow. So it gives everything a little bit more, I don't know, kind of like mass. Okay, so let's see here. I have my 1-inch hole punch here. And let's go with a... Ew, that didn't punch well. I don't think. It's stuck. There we go. It's working after whatever, like 30 years. It's one of those stamping accessories that, I didn't use it too much in the first, I don't know, maybe like whatever, 25 years of stamping, but I've come to really love it. Okay, so I'm going to take some white pigment ink here, and we'll ink up 100% cotton ball. I don't find the synthetic cotton balls work very well. Okay, they kind of wick moisture as opposed to absorbing it. So you're just not, I don't know, just the whole process takes forever with a kind of a synthetic cotton ball. So I go with 100% cotton, which doesn't cost very much more than synthetics, or I don't know, maybe synthetics are cheaper or cost more. I don't know. The synthetic ones, though, they feel like they're softer, but I don't know, they just don't work for me at all. Okay, let's add some lighting back in here. Okay. And we'll go about like so. Now, I don't want it really super light. Because this is supposed to be kind of dreary, but I do want some kind of contrast in here, and I want the ability to add in some white highlights, and we need a similar colored light source for that reason. Okay. You don't have to have it in there. You can just put in highlights, but I don't know, from a thematic sense, it just seems like it's easier to add in within the scene some of that same color that's going to be reflecting off of other objects. So in other words, if you have a little bit of white in there, you can put some white on your objects, and it seems to make more sense than not having it. I mean, you can have, we can say this moon is kind of, or whatever, sun is off scene, out of the frame of the scene, in other words. Okay, now I'm adding a little bit more up top and a little bit less down below. So it kind of transitions rather than this like really stark, whatever, ball of light, I want it to be like this light in there. If I did, I would add a little bit of tone to that. But see this, if you add it in there, some of the paper shows through that. If you add it kind of thinly, so you can see the difference between, like white and this. It's, it's a little bit more dreary. That being said, maybe that's a little bit too light. Okay, let's go a little bit more. If you add too much in there, you can just leave that on there and just take a paper towel and just kind of dab some of it off. And remember, one of the things about pigment ink, I mention this all the time in my videos, but the pigment ink, when it's wet, it's lighter than what it looks like when it's dry. So sometimes you think it's a little bit too stark. Give it a little bit of time to start setting up and dry. And I think you'll find it gets a little bit more, it moves a little bit more towards transparency. And it will dry a little bit more transparent and thus darker. Okay, so let's see. So if that's the water, and this is going to be like water down here, I'm going to put some of this reflected light down in here, okay? Now, maybe it'd be easier for me to put this lighting down here and then stamp this figure on top. But the thing about that is you have to kind of make your choice, because sometimes stamping this black image on top of like applied white pigment ink, the figure doesn't stamp out as dark as it does directly onto this paper. So I'm going to have to work around this a little bit. Now, it doesn't have to be with the pigment ink. You can do, I have a white pastel pencil that I can do this with too, but I just find this to be a little bit easier. So let's say that this water kind of level goes to about right here. I should actually measure this. This is one of the few times I should actually measure, because I don't want this horizon line to be kind of crooked. So let's say, let's go right. Where's that tree? Let's put it about right here. So I'm going to put this line. It's just right at the base of that rock. I'll make note. And right here, it's right at the base of that one. So I'll put this line right across from here. And then where did that other rock go? Right here. Okay, so that's going to be my kind of water horizon line. Use your same cotton ball. If you have some white pastel too, chalk pastel or something like that, you can put that down there, and that would probably be like even easier, like pan pastels. But I'll just add some of this down like this. I'm not going to make it as light as the, my light source, that moon. Or is it a sun? I don't know. But see that little horizon light like that? That gives us our horizon, and it also gives us our reflected related illumination. Okay, I'm putting a little bit more here, and then as I go out here, it's a lighter amount of it. So when you first ink up, just start working, where it's the most lit, and then as I tap like this, it's getting drier on my cotton ball, and then I'm kind of going out here on the edges, on the perimeter like that. Okay, so just concentrate a little bit in there, and you can also do some kind of wiping motion like this, and that'll give you a little bit of a streak maybe. It's kind of weird. It's almost like I'm dry brushing this in, so. All right, so there's our little figure there. I'm getting a little bit on top of my figure here too, but I'll just fill that in with a little bit of black as well. Okay. So is that a little bit of that glow, and I have a little bit of this in here in the water. So I'm kind of wiping it like that in there just to give it a little bit of a, that reflective glow. It's kind of strange. Maybe this should be a little bit more dreary, but I'm kind of doing the same, I don't know, kind of techniques that I would do with, I don't know, kind of more of a romantic lighting type of situation. Maybe I shouldn't. Yeah, with the theme of this piece. Okay, so that's a little bit of the lighting in here. Now I'm going to go in here with my charcoal pencil, because I I had to get close to this figure, but I didn't want to just completely avoid it, so I ended up going over some of its head, so it was a little bit lighter up there, so I'm just going and just doing a little bit of retouching right here with this black pencil. You can use a black colored pencil too. This one here happens to be a black watercolor pencil. Okay, now we've added some lighting in here, right? So I'm going to go in here and add some shading in here, okay? So for the most part, I want to kind of, just in general, if you kind of don't know, it's like, oh, hey, Kevin, I don't know where to add the shadows. I don't know how to define lighting. Just in general, you can kind of make your perimeter a little bit darker. So we're starting off with this, you know, I stamped on this one right here. It's this vignette around here. So we're going to bring this vignette in, but we're not going to do it as dark as that, okay? So if you just kind of make everything a little bit darker on the outside, it will kind of close the image off a little bit and contain things a little bit more. But so, okay, so you start off on the edge. And one of the things is you can look for objects too in here, okay? And right underneath them, you kind of extend the shadows out or create your shadows where they don't exist. Okay, so let's start on the edges here. So I see these rocks over here in this tree. So I'm going to go in here and just add. See, I'm adding like a 15-20% gray with my black pencil. So you're just barely adding it in. This is how you kind of, this is like the basics of drawing. You just kind of start off with your forms, you know, really lightly until you get your form. Then, you know, you can kind of, this is like a ball here. You know, you can kind of add in some shadows like this. And then you just get a little bit darker like that. So here's a ball like that. Lighting is coming from over here. And then, see, here's a shadow right here, like this, okay? And you're just doing it very lightly, but then closer to the, you know, the object that's creating that shadow, you kind of make it a little bit darker down there like that. So you see this right here. Here's this form. This is going out like that. So you don't start off with like shadows like that, you know, unless you're going, yeah, you could, I guess, if you're going for something like a, you know, super expressionistic approach to something. But by and large, you just kind of start light like this. So see like these objects right in here, I'm kind of creating that shadow at the base of them. I'm not really coloring in those rocks. But you could, you know, put a little bit, but leave the tops of them a little bit lighter so that it looks like they're more kind of three-dimensional. Okay, so here's a little trick right here. Okay, so the lighting is coming from here. So see the shadow right at the base of these rocks right here? Well, you kind of go out here a little bit more. You extend that out over here to the right like this. So see that? And now the the shadow is being cast that way. Okay, now these rocks over here, the shadow would be going this way. Okay. So, but just in general, you just anchor them down a little bit like this. That kind of light application of tone, then you go a little bit darker right at the base of those rocks. Okay. So you get this little bit of a darker to lighter transition. People often say they're heavy-handed. And it's not really that they're heavy-handed and they just can't press less, okay? It's because they want things to happen fast, okay? And they want it to kind of happen instantaneously as opposed to kind of more methodically and carefully. Because if they go like this, they're thinking, hey, that shadow doesn't look like this, you know, kind of transition. But it just takes like a couple seconds long. Because I say that, you know, if they were applying like some, I always give this analogy, but if they're asked to apply like some little bit of makeup, you know, on a child's face, like a 2-year-old's face, they're not gonna be like super heavy-handed and say, I can't stop, you know, grinding into, you know, they'll be able to adjust. It's just that, you know, it's usually they get impatient or something like that. But the thing about this is just taking a couple more seconds and applying, you know, kind of a little bit more, I don't know, whatever, methodically. It does take a lot less time than having to go in and readjust something that they've applied too heavily. And they have to kind of go in and kind of repair that. That takes like much more time. But you can see how this tone's just kind of starting to kind of take place. It's a little bit of this tone, these 20% grays or something like that in the shaded areas like that. It's really kind of bringing this out in here. In terms of contrast, it's kind of bringing the viewer's attention towards the ferryman for his whatever moonlit or early morning pleasure cruise. Okay, now on these rocks right down here, a little trick to this, just like I'm doing kind of up here, but it's a little bit more subtle. But see down here, I'm going to create these, see how these different portions of these rocks are? It's like, here's a rock right here, and here's a rock right here. It's all kind of the same rock, just a little bit. But see, here you kind of build up some tone down here, and then go up, and then use less like that. So it's kind of the opposite of shadows kind of being cast from down here. You're going darker at the base and then lighter. This one you're going darker at the base from bottom to top, okay? Because the lighting is up here, so it's hitting those rocks. So just hit a little bit like that. And this is what I, going back to the beginning of this video, I said, I'm adding this rock down here so that I wouldn't have to add in all of that vignette down here because my rocks are down here. So I'm shading them, and that is providing that vignette down there. Okay, so see, I'm just going in. I added a little bit of tone at first. Now I'm adding it heavier right at the base of them. So you leave the top of them light, and it looks like the light is hitting it like that. And let's go a little bit darker in here. Okay, like that. See, I can just kind of add this in accordingly. I was thinking, let's go a little bit more dramatic. I'm being a little bit too conservative there. Yeah, it's not really conservative. It's just like I added a certain amount, and then you can adjust accordingly. So if I go with a little bit more, you know, heavier shading like that, we're creating a little bit more contrast. Now, the darker you take your shadows, the lighter this area is going to seem. Which I don't know, might not be good. Maybe you want it a little bit more dreary with less contrast. And I think that looks pretty cool, though. Now, I guess you can add in some color into this type of thing if you want to. I wouldn't make it like super bright or anything like that, but if you want a little, you know, add in some different tones in here, maybe just some additional brown tones might be kind of interesting. It's kind of within the theme of it, so here's a couple browns like that. If you don't want to just go with only black, you know, you want to add a little bit more richness into it, you know, you can go with this, and it's within the, you know, the color theme of the that's inherent in this vintage style pattern paper, textured paper. visual texture. It's not physically. Everything's like really smooth on here. Here's a little bit of a warmer brown like this. So you can see I can hit it down in these darker areas like that. You know, what might be look kind of interesting is to add a little bit of a like green in here or something like that. That might give it a little bit of an eerie kind of look. You know, here's green, a little bit of this olive-ish green. Maybe it's kind of like stagnant or, I don't know, algae covered. I don't know if you can tell. It's a little bit. And I don't want to do too much of this. It's kind of like the green for me, like right in here. It's like a little bit more of an experiment. Actually, I don't know. That looks pretty cool. I guess I don't know if you can see it here. It's a little bit more subtle. All right. Yeah. Okay, now I don't think I need to do too much on this one right here. See, I usually hit, you know, my things with like some sparkly light with, you know, my paint pens. You can use gel pens or something like that. But I don't think I want it to look like sparkling light or anything like that in here. But here's a white Carbothello pastel pencil. And I'm just kind of highlighting some of the top surfaces of some objects just to put a little bit of that light into them, like they're reflecting light. Now, if you're using the pastel pencil, it would be a good idea to spray, fix this down. You know, it is just kind of like a chalk pencil pastel. Putting these little horizontal, I don't know, reflective water lines, or I don't know what you call them. Striations. Yeah, I don't know if you can see these down here, but it kind of brings some of that light down here. Just putting in a few little streaks. It's, you know, it's kind of subtle. Now, if you, with pastels, of course, if you put it in there, it's, oh my god, I put way too much. You can just wipe them right off with a, you know, or you can take an eraser and go in there. When you do spray seal pastels, especially if it's really subtle and white especially, you can stand, it can make those, you know, very subtle marks just kind of disappear. But if you're working with a workable fixative especially, you can go back in and just add some more over the top of it, and you add a little bit of sealant over it, you know, add a very thin layer, and, you know, there's a better chance of the retention of those marks in there. Okay, I'm going to add in some, like, little white, like, within these trees here, like this, to maybe look like it's, I don't know, some fog in the background like that. Okay. And we'll just go right over the tops. I usually put it over the base of things. Like the base of the tree trunks, like right in there. You do it like this. I usually do it with pigment ink, but kind of this might look a little bit more kind of eerie. I don't know. You can do both, I guess. I don't know if it might, if you put like some white pigment ink down in there, it might be kind of hard to go over with a pastel pencil. The pastel pencil might not apply to it because the paper is going to be a little bit more sealed off, and pastels kind of, they need a little bit of tooth on the paper to adhere to apply. See, it's kind of looking a little more eerie with the these little streaks like this in here. Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit too much. So you just wipe it off like that. Then you can stamp your quote stamp in here somewhere, kind of wish you were here. What about thinking of you? All right. So anyways, that is that. I'm going to go and I'll spray seal this, and I'll format this into a, some stiffer cardstock, and come back and I'll show you what that looks like. All right. We have a simple matting around this, mounting with a little bit of a, it's kind of a bit of a tan colored paper, really thin, just to kind of bring out the highlights in here. And then I have a matte black piece of paper around that. I don't have any glossy. Glossy might have looked even better. I need to get some black glossy, though. I have it in my shopping cart, online shopping cart. But anyways, I think that should do it there. I'm holding it at a bit of an angle because there's a little bit of a glare, as usual, coming off my studio lights here. So I'll angle that up so you get a little bit of a better indication of what this looks like without all the lights glaring off of there. But yeah, really fun to do this type of thing on the vintage paper. I think it kind of goes within it fits within the theme of Halloween really well. You can do all kinds of things on it though. But anyways, if you need to do like a really fast card, relatively fast card, I mean, this is a half-page scene here too, but if you're just working on a quarter page, like a card like that would be really cool and really fast to do. All you have to do is just go in there and add in some shadow work and some highlighting like that. White pigment ink or something like that in there for a light source. Anyways, had a lot of fun with my some of my new stamps, and there are a ton of them that we can utilize in here. Maybe I should have thrown in, like, if this was like way up here and I could put some of these skulls kind of in the water or something like that, that might be pretty interesting too. Or not in this scene right here. I wanted to create a certain type of mood, but if I want to create like a more festive type of environment, you can add in a lot more of these Halloween creatures. This raven here on this skull might be kind of interesting sitting on, a rock here in the foreground or something like that. But again, I just wanted to create, a certain type of mood around this piece. And I don't know, I think it looks pretty fun here. All right, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, drop me a note in the comment section.